D. Jamel Young, also known as Jamel Young, is a 36-year-old black man of trans experience, Army veteran, community leader, advocate, lover, also fighter. My father was in the military. My mother was a young parent, and I was born in the late 80s. So my parents were caught up in that late 80s, early 90s lifestyle. My grandmother raised me while my father and my mother kind of were in and out the streets, in and out of jail. And I was the only child, so I had a lot of time with myself to really, just be with myself, be in my thoughts. And I think that helped me identify who I was. Nobody was really like telling me or dictating who I was. As I look back and reflect, I see the young me in a male mindset, but I just was being me. I was just living, just loving, just wanting. It wasn't until I moved to New York, about 6th grade, is when I started like trying to identify my identity. It wasn't really until I started dating females, and when they started really affirming my masculinity, that's when I stepped all the way into it. Sexual fluidity is basically sexuality being able to change over a period of time, through situations, just the freedom of your sexuality to be wide ranged. Me personally, I kind of identify as sexual fluid with preferences, because I know that essentially it's really about the person. It's really about my circumstances. Again, I prefer certain identities or certain situations, but I'm also a never say never person. My gender identity is trans man, trans masculine, man of trans experience. They're interchangeable. Gender identity and sexuality and sexual identity are completely separate, but they do exist and intersect in spaces. Gender identity is how you see yourself, who your true inner self is. And then sexual identity is who you choose to love and have sex with and who you're attracted to. Life for me as a black trans man is loaded. And if you would have asked me some years ago, it probably would have been different. In current time, it is empowering. It is fulfilling, scary, but it is where I need to be to succeed. I thrive off being seen of who I am. And so I guess the last word I'll leave with is seen. Trans masculine individuals express sexuality just like anybody else. End of the day, we are all human, no matter how we identify, and we are ranged in the things that we like and the things that we indulge. I think that the sexual health of trans masculine folks are impacted in this climate because most folks don't understand our walk and how diverse that could be. I think that there's a lot of stigma still on how we should be and live our lives that sometimes can limit how we show up. It could affect the way that we negotiate sex. It could affect the way that we want to be desired and the things we do to get that desirability. And I think a lot of times some guys are so focused on their transition that they forget about the sexual health part, especially if you have to identify or acknowledge parts of your body that you don't really identify with. So therefore, you might lack the resources, you might lack prevention tools, you might lack the knowledge. And a lot of times that can lead to the rise of our numbers. What's important to take away from contracting STIs is that it does not discriminate against any person. It does not belong to any group of folks, no identity, no sexual orientation. And that is really important to understand how these things are passed around or passed through. I know folks just think about condomless sex and that's it, when there are STIs you can get just from skin-to-skin contact. So one of my goals is to really take away that layer of stigma, to kind of make it a more approachable conversation to have about the things you like to do. What are the realities of that risk, and how can you still do the things you like to do, maybe a little safer.